The Closing Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close, starts right now.
And right now we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Katie Greifeld taking you through to the closing bell with a global simulcast. We're joined right now by Tim Stenovec in the radio booth, Norah Mulinda in today for Carol Master. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including our partnership with YouTube, Tim Stenovec, on a day where the market decidedly on the back foot, a little bit of a breather from the record run that we've had.
Yeah, a little bit of a breather. We're off our worst levels of the day, but still seeing some red on the screen. Interestingly enough, it's risk on when it comes to crypto. A new record for Bitcoin, up above $118,000 per Bitcoin. So they're not concerned about trade tensions.
Risk on, but we're seeing a market that ended lower. I'm looking at financial stocks being the worst performing sector in the S&P 500 as we close on this Friday.
Yeah, we'll see how that changes next week, though. Of course, we know it's bank earnings kicking off. We have the 6 majors to get through, and it feels like, I mean, you take a look at the sell side, you take a look at investors, they seem to agree that the stars are aligning for financials.
Yeah, the stars are certainly aligning for financials, which, of course, at least as a group, we're trading near those record highs coming in to this week. And don't forget, we also get Netflix as well. So a little bit of a preview maybe onto the consumer side of the equation. And I do wonder about expectations, Tim and Norah, this idea that are investors prepared for the best? Are they prepared for the worst, or are they just kind of somewhere in the middle?
I think they're somewhere in the middle. I mean, look at the expectations a few months ago about what tariffs would do. That really hasn't materialized, and now the commentary seems to be, okay, well, just wait a few more months and we'll see it materialize.
All right, well, we get the closing bells here in New York. A bit of a mixed day and a bit of a mixed week for financial markets, coming off record highs or near record highs, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing out the day lower by almost 300 points, or about 0.6%. That's going to amount to a drop on the week of about 1%. The S&P 500 down 21 points on the day, or 0.3%. That's also going to lead to a loss on the week. The NASDAQ Composite and the NASDAQ 100 each losing around 40 points or so on the day, both closing out the week in the red. And there's the Russell 2000, which had been the outperformer for the last few sessions. Now the underperformer, down 0.6% for the day.
Decidedly down.
Excuse me, 1.3% on the day. Excuse me.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, even worse.
Oh,
Yeah.
Decidedly down day for the major indexes. And look at that, the S&P 500, only 110 stocks in the S&P 500 moved higher today, 390 declined.
All right, let's take a look at the sector level. You did manage to see some green, of course, when it comes to energy, when it comes to consumer discretionary, managing to poke into the green. This is a prettier picture, actually, than when I checked this board at about 9:40 this morning. You had every single sector in the red, but still overwhelmingly financials, healthcare, materials, consumer staples, all dragging this index down.
Okay, I managed to find some gainers today. I want to start with Levi Strauss. Shares higher by 11.3% today. They hit the highest level in more than a year. This after the company came out yesterday and boosted its net revenue forecast for the full year. A big question a lot of investors had was what has been and what will be the impact on the company from tariffs. Harmeet Singh, the company's CFO and Chief Growth Officer, he told our Bloomberg News team that it'll be about $25 to $30 million through the end of the year. We actually had him on our program a few hours ago, and I asked him specifically about moving production, moving manufacturing to the United States, because that is exactly what the president wants to see. It doesn't matter if it's in Vietnam or China or Indonesia or where it is. The president wants to see it here in the U.S. He was decidedly firm in his answer. That is not going to happen for Levi Strauss. He mentioned that 98% of apparel that comes to the United States and that is sold in the United States is actually manufactured outside of the U.S., and they're not going to change that here when it comes to Levi Strauss. Though he's still working through tariffs and even making last-minute changes based on the news that he hears from the president, even up to late last night after earnings, he mentioned. Also, Performance Food Group shares surged higher today. Bloomberg News reported that the company has attracted takeover interest from U.S. Foods Holding Corp. It's a potential deal that would create a food distribution company with a combined sales of roughly $100 billion. This is according to people familiar with the matter. Shares higher by more than 4.8% today. The company would become the #1 U.S. food service distributor with 18% of the $371 billion market. This is according to Bloomberg Intelligence. We should note there is no certainty that these deliberations will lead to transactions, and representatives for U.S. Foods and Performance Food declined to comment. And finally, this is a former micro cap that is now a small cap after today's move of close to 40%. Unusual Machines. It's a drone tech company based in Florida, and drone-related firms rallied today. This after Fox News reported that Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has issued orders to ramp up production and deployment of drones. Unusual Machines higher today by close to 40%. Josh Sullivan over at Benchmark says the memo focused on three main goals: bolstering U.S. drone manufacturing, delivering thousands of low-cost drones to the military, and integrating drone operating into training. Once again, shares higher by close to 40%, Norah.
Well, we've got a few names in the red as expected with the market closing lower today. I'm looking at shares of PayPal. That was the worst performing stock in the S&P 500 today. And we're seeing a lot of other fintech companies like Block and Affirm also falling as well. And that all came after a headline that we saw earlier as we were heading into the close with JP Morgan telling that these fintech companies that they're going to have to pay up for customer data. That could amount to hundreds of millions of dollars for access to customers' bank account information. So we're seeing those fintech companies falling, but also credit card firms like Visa, MasterCard also lower with the move really threatening to upend specifically the fintech sector's business models. Another stock I'm looking at is Albemarle. That's ticker ALB. $8.3 billion company. It's a lithium producer based in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it was cut to sell from neutral, at UBS, with its price target trimmed to $57 from $64. We have the analyst here encouraging investors to, quote, fade the bounce, as he expects lithium prices will remain lower. And one more stock we have for you, Boyd Gaming, ticker BYD, but not the BYD you're thinking of. It's a casino operator in Las Vegas, Nevada, $6.5 billion in market cap, and it was cut to neutral from positive. They're really pointing to the stock's valuation after selling its 5% ownership in FanDuel to Flutter, and this is all from Susquehanna Financial. They're also citing the renegotiation of its market access agreement.
All right, let's take a quick check in yields here. A little bit of a subdued day, but a lot of activity. When we talk about what happened on the week, a push higher once again across the curve, a second straight week where we see yields move higher, but more importantly is the complexion of that move, a definite slant to the upside, a steepening, a bear steepening of that curve, with most, of course, of the sell-off coming on the longer end of the curve. That 30-year yield up about 8 basis points on the day, and on the week, it's more than 9 basis points higher than where it was last Friday.
What if I told you?
Go on.
Bear with us here. Come on.
What if I told you could go somewhere and get some really good bagels, some really good pizza, some nice steaks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you got my attention.
And it wasn't New York City.
Okay, now you lost me.
I just wouldn't believe you, Tim.
You're not going to say like Jersey or something.
No, we can't do that.
Watch out.
Oh.
Katie's right there.
Oh.
Guys.
Sorry, Joe.
Katie is right there.
I just moved there.
Apparently, London food is having a moment. New York food is having a moment in London. Kate Crater wrote a story for Bloomberg. She covers food all over the world. She's been in London these past few years. And she writes about some restaurants in London that are really serving a lot of food that we focused on here in New York and that New York has become known for. And it's actually really, really good.
We're talking steaks, burgers, martinis. They have apparently got it all over in London. And it's interesting because they're saying that even though it's a high tourist season here in New York, things are a bit quieter than usual. I don't really feel that when I'm walking through these streets at all here, Tim, but apparently that's the case right now.
So, I mean, the idea with this, though, too, I mean, we talk about this idea, and this is just sort of the a part of the show where I get to dump on the British.
Please.
Because it's like all their good food, none of their good food is actually British food. It's like, I mean, you get some great New York food, as you just talked about. You get some great Indian food and
food
South Asian food in there. You get all this great stuff there. What happened to, like, British food?
It's
just like peas and toast,
the
right?
bangers and mash, the fish and chips. There's some good stuff there, guys.
I remember going to
some local
food in a local hotel there, and I was,
You can get blood sausage. That's not really up my alley. But that's great for these British people who are enjoying New York food. That's awesome.
And Brexit hasn't affected any of this?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Wow. Anyway, do you want to talk about airplanes?
Sure, talk about airplanes.
Okay, let's talk about airplanes. There's an interesting story on the terminal. Delta apparently is stripping engines from new Airbus jets in Europe to use them on grounded planes in the U.S. This is according to Bloomberg reporting. This caught my
What do you mean
eye.
stripping from airplanes? What?
That's exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, they're stripping the engines off and using them to get those grounded planes up. You might think.
So these are planes they own. This isn't like the guy who comes down down my block to steal carburetors
in
or
the
whatever.
night.
These are brand new planes.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, brand new planes that they haven't taken delivery of in the U.S. because they don't want to pay the tariffs, but they have this fleet of grounded Airbus A320s that have these Pratt & Whitney engines that have worn out quicker than they were supposed to wear out because of a metal shavings issue.
Oh, go on.
From Pratt & Whitney. So what they're doing is they're taking these engines off, they're throwing them, they're bringing them to the U.S., they're putting them on the planes here. We talked to Sid Phillip about this a little earlier. He said it's actually a pretty easy thing to do.
You could try it at home.
Well, you like the ingenuity there, right? I mean, the idea that, when you run into these issues. Yeah, absolutely. Give them credit there. And the idea that you can just take those and move more. Why not?
Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Do you know what they're doing with some of the tariff, to get around some of the tariffs too on the planes, right? Did you hear about this?
No.
I was hoping you'd tell me.
The detour. Sid told us they can fly some of the wide bodies to Japan, and then they're considered used aircraft, bring them to the U.S. I mean, Ed Bastian has been very clear that he's not going to pay tariffs on these Airbus planes that are made in Europe. So,
A good workaround.
yeah, good workaround.
Yeah, until the president finds out about it, but sure.
All right, we got to go. Guys, have a great weekend.
You too.
It's really,
Friday.
really good to hang up. Happy Friday.
You too, Tim.
Have a good
And nice
Friday.
to see you, Carol, for another third day here.
Nora's here all next week, guys.
Earnings
right,
season.
let's
Wow.
go.
Wait, Carol's off next week?
Yeah.
Yes, she is.
All right, we got to go. That's going to do it for our cross-platform coverage of the market close on Bloomberg TV, Radio, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals. We'll be back on Monday, same time, same place.